there's something of value to a community that chooses to support somebody who is looking to obtain mastery of craft.
That's great.
Like this is not a discipline without danger. We start very, very slowly. We use very sharp tools. We try to look for an optimal cutting speed at the edge to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25 to 35 miles an hour.
Wow.
Anything above that starts to get into, possibly broken bones territory if something goes wrong.
Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time.
Hello.
I've seen that whole contraption set up before. That looks fun.
Hey, man. Hey, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see
Happy
you.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. We can go downstairs if we need to. You're waiting on a drink, right? Cool. Awesome. One thing I was going to mention to you in the meeting, but I asked if Jennifer Petroselli would let us use her space for doing our interviews. I like doing it down here, but I think that it's a nice, comfortable space. She's got some nice chairs in there. It's a view of the hills. And then she said she'd love to. So whenever we want to go in there, then we can go in there and do the interviews. So anything that would normally be done here, we'll just do it down there.
Yeah, let me know when you're ready to switch it over to there.
The other thing is that I want to be able to set up a camera to video the person talking and use it for social media as little clips
just like
and
a
stuff.
background reel.
At some point, I'm going to have to tell people you are listening to episode 103 of the Fremont Podcast.
I love it. There it is.
Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
So I've got Brad with me with Q Branch Woodwork.
Woodworks, yeah.
Woodworks, yeah. You and I met at the Niles Farmers Market or somewhere around the way. Maybe it was first on Instagram, but I think I remember seeing you around, and I fell in love with the work that you do. Like, I'm looking at it now. We've got some right here in front of us, and it's phenomenal. Now, I want to get into some of this.
Yeah, please.
But let's before we do that, how would you describe what you do? What is, you said just a minute ago, you said ornamental something, and I was like, well, that's a cool name. So what do you do? What do you call what you do?
So I consider myself a wood turner.
Okay.
This causes me some issues because people think, woodworker, right? Can I frame them a house? Do I love making
right.
cutting boards?
That's right.
Really, I make stuff on a lathe. So I make, if it's round, it's in my wheelhouse, basically.
So the lathe is your kind of like your primary instrument that you work with.
Exactly. The whole idea being, for those that don't know, is it spins wood around very quickly, and I use my hands and some chisels to remove pieces from the wood. So it's a purely subtractive, art form or craft or whatever you want to call it.
So in some ways, episode 100, we had
congratulations,
Jake.
by the way.
Thank you. We had Jake on there. He's the ceramics teacher at Washington High School, and he works on a wheel as well. And so, in some sense, the work that you do is generally going to come out symmetrical. Then, right? Would that be true of?
Yeah. For the most part, for sure. There are some things that we can do. We would call it multi-axis turning, right? Where you're moving the center point of the piece in between.
Gotcha.
In between turns or in between sessions.
Gotcha.
But that gets a little bit dicey. Basically anytime you take something that's rotating at 2,000 RPM and move it off center, it causes things to walk, which is why my lathe is 300 pounds and has sandbags on the bottom.
I gotcha. Very cool. So this is what you do. You're a wood turner. What kind of things do you form? Like, what do you make?
So the thing that I really like to make is sort of small, intricate boxes.
Okay.
I like the fact that the pieces have to fit together rather precisely, that they're cut from the same piece of wood, so you get continuous grain. And there's a lot of sort of specialized technique that goes into that. What sells for me is bowls. Okay. So that's a pretty core part of, really this is just a hobby that's gotten out of control, but it is technically a business. It's an LLC.
Yeah.
And bowls kind of keep the lights on and keep sandpaper in the cabinets and stuff like that.
Yeah. How long? So we've got different bowls here. I've got probably a bowl right here that's a 6-inch diameter. What is the what kind of wood is this?
That is Paduke. So that's an exotic wood from South America.
Okay. And it's got just really smooth outer shell, but the inside, what would you call the grooves on the inside?
I would call that ornamentation.
Ornamentation.
Yeah.
Okay. How long would it take you to make one of these?
Just the bowl without the ornamentation, I can knock something like that out in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. And then the ornamentation takes how long?
Another 2 hours on top of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, and then you've got large bowls. How large of work do you do? And then you have some small little. What are these, coasters or what?
Ring dishes,
Ring
basically.
dishes.
Just meant to hold small objects.
Yeah.
Keep them off your desktop or what have you.
Yeah.
My current capacity is 20 inches, but
Okay.
I'm having a rig brought in that'll give me capacity up to 32 inches,
Wow.
which I'm very excited about.
I'm just imagining like a big, huge block of wood on a lathe that size. That's huge.
Yeah, it can get a little bit dicey.
Uh-huh.
Like this is not a discipline without danger. There's no guard on the outside because
Wow.
you need to be able to reach the wood with your tools.
Okay.
So we start very, very slowly. We use very sharp tools because that's much safer, right? You'd rather cut the wood
Yeah.
than have it throw things at you.
That's right.
So once you start getting up to, we try to look for an optimal cutting speed at the edge. So RPM times the radius to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25 to 35 miles an hour.
Wow.
Anything above that starts to get into possibly broken bones territory if something goes wrong.
Wow, that's incredible.
The rule of thumb with wood turners is basically you turn the lathe up until it scares you and you back it down 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Faster is better because you're effectively getting a higher resolution of cut.
Okay.
So every time the wood is coming back around to that same point, the distance between those points, the tighter you can get that, the smoother a finish you get, and then you're having to do less sanding at the end.
You can't just jump into this and say, I'm going to buy a lathe and start like making bowls. When did you get started in this and how did that happen?
Sure. So I think it's been about 20 years since I did my first turning. My grandfather was a master furniture builder, but really only for his own life. Like he didn't have a factory or anything like that. He was just trying to make insanely detailed and finely crafted pieces for his own home.
Okay.
And so he would turn his own table legs, obviously. He wanted to do everything himself. He would machine his own bolts when he had to. And so he took me out. He put a piece of wet madrone in between centers on the lathe and put a table leg that he wanted replicated up in the windowsill so I could see it, and handed me the tools and said, go ahead and come inside when this is finished.
Oh, my goodness.
So
that's crazy.
Kind of trial by fire, for sure.
Yeah. Did you do it? I mean...
Yeah, it came out pretty well.
Okay.
What I didn't know at the time, something that I know now, madrone is very, very common up and down the West Coast and in the Pacific Northwest. And it warps so quickly that you can literally hear it. Like,
oh my goodness!
If you turn a bowl from green madrone, you can sit there and literally listen to it warping. It's like listening to corn grow. It's
my
wild.
Goodness!
And so I was encountering all these vibrations. He gave me like the most challenging piece of wood to work with that you could even dream up. And so I would sort of do it in summers when I went to visit him in Oregon. And then when the pandemic hit, my wife was pregnant. And we didn't have a child already, and so she was sleeping like 14, 16 hours a day, and we were locked inside. And so just one day, I was losing my mind. I was bored of like video games.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd seen everything on YouTube at that point already. And I went to Harbor Freight and bought a cheap lathe and a cheap set of chisels, and started it up. And pretty quickly, I figured out like those chisels were more dangerous than anything else. So then I got a set of carbide tools, and then I figured out that those were giving a pretty rough finish. And then I got stainless, which gets you into the sort of sharpening realm. Really what it turns out you are as a wood turner is a master sharpener who gets to turn wood sometimes. Okay. It's kind of its own thing. Like everybody has their own technique, their own voodoo magic that like makes their edge the perfect edge for them.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow.
I started selling work to afford more and better tools to give myself more capability so that I could turn more things, that I could sell them and expand the shop. And now you see I have like 500 square feet full floor to ceiling with finishes, tools, like absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your own little setup here for doing YouTube videos as well. And then product, what is that, a product photo cubes thing?
Yeah, little photo booth.
That's cool. Wow.
Yeah, if you're gonna try to sell online, you have to make it look nice, which is it's not my fault. I'm out here in like Costco jeans and a V. Like it's the appearance portion of it is. I'm really focused on the work,
That's
so
cool.
I've really had to learn the marketing side of it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I didn't realize that, but so it would have been near the time that you and I first met that we. That you started this, because we met in that COVID period, I think.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that you had only been doing it for a short amount of time. But I think that if you were to look at these bowls and the work that you do, I would think you've been doing it for 20 years.
Look, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is the thing that's going on in the back of my mind constantly. It's it's beyond obsession.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, I guess it's cool for the right people.
Yeah. I find a lot of people have something like that. It's an extra problem that you're chewing on. When you're up at 4:00 in the morning feeding the baby, or you're washing your 130th bottle of that week.
Yeah,
you just kind of need something else to noodle on.
Well, it's similar to what I do too with the podcast, in the sense that the podcast is a side thing that I do. It's not my main thing, and one of the things that I don't know if I would say I was criticized for. Maybe I was, but I was challenged with early on. Actually, before I did the podcast, I was challenged by somebody that I needed to really learn how to ask good questions, and I kind of took it as an insult, but I also took it as a challenge to say, okay, how do you ask the right questions, and how do you prompt good conversation with asking the right questions,
right?
And so in some sense, like I have. There's one side of podcasting where you could say podcasting is just, recording audio, a conversation and editing it and so on. But then there's like an art behind it as well, where you're like, I really want to have a good conversation with somebody.
Sure.
I want to hear the best things from that person. And so I will go back and listen to my episodes and just like think about, like, I asked this question this way, I got this response. Is that the response I was looking for?
Right.
And could I have done something better to ask the question in a different way to make it a better conversation?
Sure. I mean, this is sort of the classic creative journey.
That's
right.
right.
The first step is jump in, and then you do it, and you're so happy that you've done it. You have your 45 minutes, or you have your first, dumpy, lumpy bowl.
That's right.
And then you're so proud to have done it that you can't really be objective about it at that point.
Yeah.
And then you do a couple more. You start making what I would consider like the natural improvements, right? Which is just feeling better about it, just being comfortable. And then you can look back at sort of your earlier work and think, oh boy, that wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like that really wasn't that good at all. And then you can. Yeah. That's when you really get to start to dive in.
Well, and I tell people too when they listen to the podcast.
You can hear the rest of this conversation in just a moment.
Oh, how about this? We'll be right back. You can hear the rest of the
There you go. We'll be right back. You can hear the rest of this conversation in just a moment.
Okay, so Banter Bookshop in Fremont, in downtown Fremont. Really cool, fantastic bookshop. If you are looking for a book and you know exactly what it is, that's great. If you don't know exactly what you want, but you have an idea of the type of thing that you want, you're not going to be helped well by shopping online. Do you know who is going to help you when you have no idea what you're doing, or some idea what you're doing? Independent bookstore. Go to Banter Bookshop, tell them vaguely what you're after, and they will help you find a book.
If you are looking to buy or sell your home, look no further than Petrocelli Homes. You can find out more about them at petrocellihomes.com or pay Jennifer a visit in downtown Niles.
And now back to our conversation.
Oh boy, that wasn't great. Yeah. Like that really wasn't that good at all. And then you can. Yeah. That's when you really get to start to dive in.
Well, and I tell people too when they listen to the podcast, they're like, "Oh, the Fremont podcast, I'll check it out." And I usually say, and this is no offense to Miles, because I absolutely love Miles. Episode 1, Fremont Gear. He's a great guy. I love him to death. Glad he was able to be there for episode 1. But I will tell them, don't listen to episode 1, or if you do, listen to episode 1 and then make sure you listen to another episode, because that was early on. I was trying trying to figure out how everything was going to work, and I've learned a lot since then. So don't base the entire 100 episodes on just that first episode.
I hear you completely. I gave away stuff as gifts in my first year that I wish I could take back so badly, because I think that's what people think that I still do. Like that's my level of quality now, and I was so proud of them at the time. I was like, I cannot believe that this all came together. Look at the figure in this wood. This is crazy. And I look back at them and I think that would have gone in the burn pile like immediately. That was just horrible.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. So, this is a side thing. So you have a normal job that you do,
right?
And then you're a dad of two needy, babies.
Yeah.
And then like, how much are you putting out like right now? Like, how many products or bowls or whatever you're doing? How much do you put out? Like, say in a week?
Ideally, I could get like 4 to 5 nice bowls done in a week.
Okay.
That typically includes like 2 or 3 that I either throw away or, send to the burn pile. By burn pile, I don't actually mean I get to burn these things.
Right.
I mean, I have to put them in the green bin.
Yeah.
Or I have sort of a stack over in this area. You can see one of them over there where I try texturing and carving and stuff like that. Basically turn them into a blank canvas to try to make something out of them.
Yeah.
Either the shape's not working or the grain is just so boring that I know nobody's going to want it.
Okay.
So yeah, like probably total output is like 7 bowls across, maybe 4 to 5 hours a week if I'm lucky.
That's cool. So what are some of the things that I have maybe worked with a lathe once or twice in my life. If I were to imagine the process of what it takes to create one of these bowls, I imagine a lot of pretty basic steps, I think, that you could guess. Pick a piece of wood, put it between the points, start spinning and start cutting. What are some of the things that, like you mentioned, the grain is so boring, and that's interesting to me because I don't know that I know exactly what you're saying when you said it, because I look for certain things when I'm shopping at a market or something like that. I'm like, I just don't like the way that one looks.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would have said it's the boring grain, but now that you said it, I'm like, oh my goodness, that gives me words for the way I was feeling about a particular thing.
Right?
Yeah, it's plain.
If the form is not spectacular on a piece of just pretty boring wood, you're not going to feel a connection to it.
Yeah. So what are there any secrets in the process of being able to get from, point A to finished product, to where you don't have to bail so many times? Because there are certain secrets you can say, I can spot this. This is how you choose wood or whatever. What are some of the things that you have to go through in order to get a good product?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to do that is to buy kiln-dried lumber, right? Something that's stable. I can look at it. That's sort of what's on this shelf over here. Is I have kiln-dried lumber that I've selected because now that it's dry, I can see what's inside the wood.
Okay.
That unfortunately adds expense to the beginning. And what I prefer to do and what I've sort of been moving towards is working with local arborists who are taking down trees, either on commercial properties or residential properties. Usually that wood just gets chipped up and sent to the landfill.
Yeah.
I don't feel awesome about that. So if I can get in between them and just sort of insert myself in that process to try to harvest as much of it as I can.
Okay.
That's better. And so I'll take the green wood, I'll rough turn it, seal it with wax, put it away. The rule of thumb is 1 year of drying per inch of thickness. Right?
Oh my goodness.
If I turn bowls this December, I'm looking at like next Christmas before I can check them again.
Hold on. Yeah. If you turn a bowl this Christmas.
Yeah, so I'll turn it roughly, right? I'll remove, 80 to 90% of the material. I want the wall thickness to be about 10% of the diameter of the bowl overall. I'll seal the outside with wax, anchor seal, and then I literally put it in my shed and let it dry out for close to a year.
Oh my word!
And it warps
That's
and
crazy.
Twists and does all kinds of interesting things. A lot of them crack, like I lose a lot of them that way. But upwards of 70% of them are salvageable.
Wow. Well, how does? Yeah, I mean
those you just get lucky, right? You're just that's off of a tree, off like a commercial lot in Union City. You have no idea a lot of the time. There's some things you can do to get a little bit clever with it. Like if you're looking at where 2 branches intersect, we would call that a crotch piece.
Okay,
that'll generally at least have some sort of movement in the grain, right? Because 2 pieces of wood have converged, and so bigger branch wins, but little branch has some influence on the grain direction, so you can get this kind of nice overlapping feather pattern, what we would call feather grain. If a tree is like 40 to 50 inches diameter, you can fairly well expect some sort of compression figure in there, which would be sort of like the tiger striping that you see in this walnut here. I really this is like trying to describe a motorcycle jump over AM radio. Have you ever seen the movie Hot Rod? It's it's tough sometimes, but
that's right.
It sparkles like a tiger's eye because the wood has been compressed and moved, and the grain is literally laying different ways at intervals. So big trees are great. Crotch figure is great. If you can find a burl, I mean, people have kind of figured out burls, like that's an open secret right now. There was actually a show called Burl Hunters where these guys would just like go into the forest and try to...
so explain what a burl is, just so that...
A burl is just an odd growth on a tree. It can be caused by a fungus or a genetic mutation or some sort of trauma to the tree. Basically just like a big knobbly sort of protuberance that doesn't look like it belongs on the tree.
And that's a good thing. That's
a gold mine. That's a gold mine.
Does that make it a challenge though? Because I have worked with even just basic tools. I was drilling something for my family. I was making a candle holder with out of a piece of wood the other day, and I had a drill with a paddle bit, and I got onto a knot that was obviously it adds a little bit of a variance to the texture than the rest of the piece, but it also was very, very hard to cut with that paddle bit initially. So, I mean, you're saying it's a gold mine, but does it also make it more challenging in some ways?
100%. When the grain is going every which way, it adds a lot of complexity to the turning and especially to the finishing process. Because when you have the grain all running one direction, you can be pretty sure which tool, which bevel angle you're going to use to achieve an ideal cut without tearing the grain, without pulling the grain out. In a burl, it can be going 180 degrees within a matter of centimeters, if not millimeters. So basically it means a lot of sanding, but it also means that it's probably a piece that I can sell. So I'm still hungry for it.
That's cool. So you said you make right now as a hobby, you make 4 to 5 maybe pieces a week if you can. And then your primary place of selling these is where?
So I do go to the Niles Market. And Etsy, and then I have my own website.
When people start to buy from you, they'll find you, say at the market, or they'll find you on Etsy or whatever, and then they keep coming back, and they like what you do.
A lot of the time. And that's encouraging. It can be tough on Etsy sometimes because A, it's a hyper-competitive marketplace. B, a lot of wood turners are also retired old guys, so they're not looking to make a business out of it. So you're being constantly undercut by people who are just looking for something to do with their spare time.
I see.
I like to think that I'm beating them in terms of quality and form and design and stuff like that, but it's still a problem. If you just need a salad bowl and like Dale from Arkansas made one from $40, you're not going to come to me for one for 160. It's just classic challenges in the marketplace. And then it's expensive to acquire customers in crowded online marketplaces as well. So, it really encourages me to be on my game, make sure that my finishes are nice, make sure that the pieces are solid and that they'll last for a lifetime. So that, when somebody turns over that same bowl 6 years from now, Thanksgiving, they see the logo, I'm still online.
That's cool.
It's something that people want to have in their home as opposed to something that's, kind of bought and tossed.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. You have individual pieces. Do you sell sets, or do you have people asking for sets, like maybe 4 bowls or something like that?
I'll do custom nested sets if somebody asks me for them. I have some friends throughout the industry, some people who very specifically just make nested sets. They cut the nested sets, dry them, and then I get to finish turn them at home. I've done a couple myself. I found that they didn't sell all that well at the markets. I kind of got tired of lugging around, 16 super heavy bowls that I thought maybe weren't going to go anywhere. If people ask, I'm happy to do them. I like it. It's a bigger challenge making either 4 identical bowls or 4 bowls out of exactly the same log, where the grain lines up piece by piece.
That's right. Yeah.
I think it's cool, but I find that most people are coming in looking for like a salad bowl or a chip bowl or, something more along those lines.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that it's interesting because I think COVID kind of prompted a lot of different things. There's the thing that everybody's doing, whether it's making sourdough bread,
right,
or learning pottery or whatever.
Crying in your shower.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
People got good at stuff.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a number of things that people found that they enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have appreciated, it's that there was kind of the industrial age, or maybe after the industrial age, and not talking about the grand industrial age, but there was a time, at least when I was growing up, in my home, in the place where I was, like paper plates were the thing, paper cups were the things.
Sure.
And it was a lot of, everything was disposable. You bought it, you didn't buy it at a high price, you bought it at a low price because you're just going to get rid of it. And
somebody had mechanized convenience and made it available to you.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's so much out there now of, like, you have fast food, fast clothing, fast whatever, because everything, people buy things with the intention of wearing it for a couple times and then they're just going to get rid of it. They're not going to, but I found is that there's kind of like this, I feel like there's this turning in our culture where people are actually interested. For me, I have a mug that I like drinking my coffee out of regularly, and I do have a drawer full of mugs at my house, but I find myself picking a particular one that was handmade by a particular person or whatever.
Right.
And I'm just like, I love that mug. I don't even know why I have the other mugs. I probably just wasted my money and wasted, some other, business's time in buying that, or, whatever.
Right.
And so I think that, I guess what I'm getting down to is, like, I do think that what you're doing actually provides, like, a healthy push in a good direction, and that is not just valuing the art of the work that you do, but also encouraging people to say, hey, instead of just, like, looking for convenience and throwing stuff away, look at things that are beautiful, things that are useful, things that are, made with care.
I think people are hungry for that. I think that you're right.
That's right.
I think that we get a lot of immediacy kind of pushed on us. And we're in Silicon Valley right now. Like, this is the place where we try to make everything faster and easier and cheaper if we can. And I think people can get overwhelmed with that. I mean, I think you see, I don't need to go into all the demographic and statistical data on this, but they, by and large, it seems like we're feeling more alone, more disconnected from our peers. Especially if you're in my age group, typically you don't own your home, right? So like none of this is really yours, right? All of this feels very temporary. And so I think that there's a hunger for connection to other people, but also to objects, like not having somebody else make these decisions at you via marketing, but to make a conscious decision about the objects that you surround yourself with, the things that you use, keeping that leather wallet for 40 years because it bears the marks of your use.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We found my grandfather's Zippo lighter in my dad's desk drawer a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And he had worn off the nickel plating finish on it down to the brass because that was exactly how he used it. And even though smoking killed him, I still thought it was a really, really cool object because it bore the marks of his use. That was exactly how he used it.
That's right.
And I think that there's something really, really cool about that. And I also think that there's something of value to a community that chooses to support somebody who is looking to obtain mastery of craft.
That's great.
Right?
That's great.
And I think that the value goes beyond, like, we all get nice bowls or nice shoes or whatever it is. I think that there is substantial cultural value in being able to support somebody through the beginning stages of something, because the eventuality reflects well on the community.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. If you need help navigating the local real estate market, contact Petrocelli Homes on Niles Boulevard. With almost 2 decades of experience, this family-owned brokerage is an expert in the local real estate market. Give Jennifer Petrocelli a call. With her wide-ranging knowledge of the real estate industry and expert negotiation skills, Jennifer goes above and beyond for her clients. Jennifer helps her clients make smart real estate decisions that benefit them in the long run. So if you're looking for a realtor who knows what they're doing and who genuinely cares about your needs and wants, reach out to Jennifer today and discover why Petrocelli Homes is the right choice for all of your real estate needs.
Do you know what else shopping online for books is bad at? Finding the book next to the book that you want. Now, the online stores are going to make believe that they can do that for you through suggestions, but it is not the same. And finding the book next to the book that you came in for is one of the best feelings you can have in a bookstore. So go to Banter Bookshop, find the book you were looking for, and the book next to it.
I love that. I think that it doesn't standardize everything to everything that's out there in the world.
Right.
This is out of my community. This is out of the place where I'm invested, where I live. And it's and I do feel that way. Like I have candles that have been made from candle makers here in Fremont, and when I light that candle, I think of that person. I feel like it's from home. It's from the place that I.
And oh my goodness, that's such an important point because like we're all kind of in a weird sort of like non-tribal living situation. This all used to be multi-generational housing. You were a fisherman, your dad was a fisherman, his dad was a fisherman, right? We've all kind of lost that. We're all, especially my generation, we're all expected to have, sort of 4 to 5 mini careers, right? None of this is permanent. And so to find something that kind of ties you to the place where are, the place where you're trying to put down your roots, I think is really important.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I actually really love about the city of Fremont, and that is, in spite of the fact it has some weird statistics that are almost contradictory. It's like it's the 4th largest city in the Bay Area, but it doesn't feel large. Like it feels like Hayward might be larger than Fremont,
sure.
or it feels like Palo Alto might be larger than Fremont.
Right.
But Fremont is in fact, right under Oakland. We're the 4th largest city in the Bay Area. We don't even have the Fremont Bank is building the largest building in the city, and it makes everything else in the city look small because it's this massive monstrosity of a building. And you have other cities around the Bay Area that have bigger buildings. You cross the San Mateo Bridge, and you go down in there, and there's big buildings right there,
Right.
And yet our city's still bigger than those particular cities.
Yeah.
But so we have a lot of like small town feels.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting too. The more people that I get to know, especially like yourself or people. Like even like I think of Niles Candle Company down here. Like she works a full-time job, and and unfortunately her husband, who she started that business with, passed away last year.
No.
But she works a full-time job, and yet she did that because it was a dream that they had together to start that candle company.
Sure.
And now it's embedded into who we are as a community. And so I do think that it is the small businesses, the makers that live within the city that are doing what you're doing, that are helping keep the personality of a city alive, to keep it unique, to keep it special. And I think that's important. I think it's important. I love the fact that that what you said is it encourages. There's an encouragement to support, what's happening where you are.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's great.
I feel that so deeply.
Yeah.
My wife will kind of get mad at me when we're walking through craft fairs and stuff like that. I'll pick something up and I'll be like, look, this isn't good yet. Right, but this guy is 2 years away from being good, and I know what he needs to buy to get from here to there, and so I'm going to plunk down some cash and help him get there.
There you go. That's awesome.
Because the value of having him be great at this later is more important than the $20 or $40 in my pocket.
That's great. Wow. So if people wanted to find out more about what you're doing, you have Instagram that I love to follow, and you show some really great stuff on there. So the Instagram is Q Branch Woodworks.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they can find your website through that as well. I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I have a little link tree on my Instagram that'll pretty much give you everything. My YouTube is bad because video editing is hard and takes so many more hours than I have.
That's right.
Basically, I'll just put a camera on a stick and kind of show you what it takes to make a bowl. There's not too much special to it, but if sometimes you get lucky, and if you buy a bowl from me, I have a video on how it was made, which
That's
I think
great.
is kind of neat.
Yeah, I love that. And if people wanted to buy from you, they have the website. But how often are you at like the Niles Market or other markets around town?
I try to go to the Niles Market monthly.
Okay.
That's been my thing. I have a little bit of a family health scenario right now, so my time and attention are a bit more divided than they were even.
And you have
like
a full-time job.
Yeah. I mean, it's how it goes. But I try to get out about once a month. If I take a tree down, I'm not cutting down the trees, but if I work with an arborist who takes down a local tree, I try to post that on Nextdoor, just because I love the idea that tree kind of stays in the neighborhood.
That's cool.
I sold a couple black acacia pieces to people in Fremont from a tree that came down on Niles Boulevard. Like it came. You remember those big storms we had last year?
Yeah.
Tree came down, and I was driving by in my truck, and I saw it, and I literally just like hopped the curb, popped out my chainsaw, took as much of it as I could.
Wow.
And I think I have 2 more pieces drying, but other than that, all of them stayed in Fremont, which I think is really
That's really cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Wow. What are some of the things? How long have you lived in Fremont?
Coming up on 3 years now.
Okay. And have you? What do you think about Fremont? Do you enjoy living here?
I love it. I mean, my wife grew up here.
Okay.
She was over in Irvington.
Okay.
So she knew the area. It wasn't necessarily on my radar. I grew up in South San Jose, Oak Grove, Santa Teresa area.
Okay.
My folks moved into Almaden. And then I just, as like a young bachelor, I lived in like Los Gatos and Santa Clara and a couple other places. And Fremont wasn't necessarily on my radar.
Yeah.
I'd come back here to visit my wife's parents
a
number of times, and I liked it, but I didn't have a super strong opinion of it. And then when we were looking at this house, we went to Niles to meet with the real estate agent. And I was like, okay, this is cute right
this
here.
Is awesome.
Like this. Yeah. This has kind of small town appeal, and then you drive 4 miles the other way, and you're kind of right back in the thick of it. You're on 880. You got like donuts, California Pizza Kitchen, like all the ethnic food you could ever possibly want. You still get all of the amenities while still, I can like take my kid in a stroller and walk down past the library that's only open for like 30 minutes a week. To like the ice cream shop, I can go find like a 1961 G.I. Joe action figure in one of the crazy antique shops.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like a cool place to raise a family. And I love the people too.
Sure.
It's one of my favorite parts about selling at that market is that you can meet, young families who have sort of just moved in, but the old guard of Fremont and Niles are some of my favorite people because it's like, you can meet like a guy who's a machinist for 45 years on the line, and then like a legitimate was there at Woodstock hippie in purple glasses, and then like just everybody that I met is so nice. Yeah. And I like getting to be a part of this community because I didn't always feel that in places that I lived before, but especially with, Niles as sort of the anchor or the focal point of our immediate area right here.
That's right, yeah.
It just all feels very connected.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and for anybody who hasn't found it yet, just a quick shout out to the Cast of Niles podcast because I don't host that, but I produce it, and we focus specifically on the people that he was just talking about in Niles. So if you want to hear some of the stories of the old guard of Niles that are still here or that have family members from generations before that were here, then that's a great podcast to listen to. But yeah, that's really cool. Well, so thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Do you expect? Obviously you said that things have kind of grown and you would do a whole lot more. Do you ever expect this would be something more of a full-time thing, or what are you thinking?
That's my goal. I have sort of a loose 5 to 7 year plan for how I would like this to go. I've started teaching classes sort of here and there. My goal is to be more up and running by like March of 2024.
Okay.
Partially as user education because I don't think that the public understands what a rose engine is, right? This super ornate 15 and 1600s technology that I've kind of replicated here.
Wow.
So it's a chance to kind of expose people to that, give them a chance to get their hands dirty. But can I tell you the full vision?
Please, yeah. I want to hear it.
There's a storefront in Niles where there's this sort of, it's like the reverse of a bay window.
Okay.
Like the window sort of goes in towards a glass door, and I want to put a lathe in one of those corners. Turn bowls there and basically sell them out of there like they're sandwiches.
That's
like that,
awesome.
That would be the goal.
That is cool.
It's local timber. You get to watch it being made and you take it home that day. So you
I love it.
That through line of connection to the pieces.
I love it.
That would be the ultimate for me. I don't know how like financially feasible
Yeah.
it will turn out to be, but that's my dream, and I hope that at some point I can like take a break from my job and just pick up like a 6-month lease and just see if it works.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, I think that I've had a similar vision for the podcast, and I don't know exactly where the podcast is going to end up, but there was a space in Niles that came open, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like my dream spot. Like, and not that I want it to be, not that it's about the aesthetics, because I don't even do video right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been strongly encouraged by people to do video, but I don't do video right now. And but I thought, man, how cool would it be just to be able to sit here, put some nice leather chairs in front of this window, look out at the hills, and just be able to have a conversation and talk about the Fremont or whatever it is. And I just thought, man, this would be so awesome.
Hey, I'm bringing the coffee and cigars.
There you
The
go.
day you get it, I'll be guest number one on that one.
Let's do it. That's awesome. That's great. Well, I hope that the dream comes true, man.
Thank you. Likewise, man.
I hope that whatever needs to happen in order for you to be able to to follow that dream and to make it a reality, I hope it all takes place.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife before I got out here, like, I have to do this. This is the first piece of media that I haven't created from absolutely nothing myself.
Wow.
So I'm going to go.
That's awesome.
I'm taking this
I love
podcast
it.
today.
I love it.
I really appreciate
Well,
it.
it's a privilege to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, and now it's happened. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yep.
This episode was hosted and produced by Ricky B. I'm Gary Williams. Scheduling and pre-interviews by Sarah S. Andrew Cavett is the editor. If you would, please leave a review on iTunes. Your reviews help other people find this podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. You can find everything we make, the podcast, and all of our social media links at thefremontpodcast.com. Join us next week on The Fremont Podcast.
If you have enjoyed this podcast, consider supporting it with a small gift at buymeacoffee.com/The Fremont Podcast. Thank you for your support and thanks for listening.
This is a Muggins Media podcast.